You're tuning into Black and White Sports on YouTube. The no-holds-barred truth on sports. The main event starts now.
All right, Black and White Sports supporters, we're going to talk about the Las Vegas Raiders. Going to talk about some stuff that Antonio Pierce had to say about Patrick Mahomes and how to defend him. It's going to be very interesting if Roger Goodell gets his little feelings hurt and somebody complains and this ends up becoming an issue where Antonio Pierce gets talked to by the league. I kid you not. We're in a different place. I love what he's got to say. I absolutely love it. And not for a second do I believe he really means go out on the football field and remove Patrick Mahomes' head. I don't believe that. Anybody with half a brain's not even for a second going to believe that. And then we've also got comments from Maxx Crosby because, and I think this is a product of the Raiders having moved to Las Vegas, he misses he misses being in Oakland, and he misses the Oakland Raiders fans. Completely different environment. Of course, the Black Hole Allegiant Stadium, it looks great. But we also know that the Raiders moved there in part because they wanted tourist money. In other words, when people were coming in to visit those big buildings called casinos, the Raiders wanted that general public to float over into a Raiders game. All right, which means a lot of times you don't have all Raiders fans in the stadium, and sometimes not even close. Well, that changes the environment. During a football game, Maxx Crosby misses it. So let's get to Antonio Pierce. This is Larry Brown Sports. Antonio Pierce knows that for his tenure as Las Vegas Raiders coach to be a success, he will have to find a way to slow down Patrick Mahomes and the division rival Chiefs. To that end, he took some inspiration from the NBA in formulating a plan to do that. Pierce appeared on Maxx Crosby's The Rush podcast. I officially got to watch this podcast or listen to it because this has got to be really good. And discussed how the Raiders must, quote, knock the head off of the snake. I love it. Let's get the hoe out and chop that snake's head off. Let's get the shovel out and chop that snake's head off. Guys, I almost stepped on a water moccasin towards the end of the summer. Man, I live out on the lake, and yeah, they're everywhere out here. In order to succeed against the Chiefs. That is Mahomes, and it is why Pierce is looking to the infamous, quote, Jordan rules used by the 1980s Detroit Pistons to slow down the young Michael Jordan. Man, what a great team. That Pistons team, Joe Dumars, Isaiah Thomas, Vinnie Johnson, Bill Laimbeer, holy moly. That team was, and Rick Mahorn, that team, you want to talk about violent and physical back in the good old days of the NBA when I actually watched. We've got the Jordan rules, and we've got what I'm calling now, from as long as I'm here, the Patrick Mahomes rules. Quote, you remember when Jordan was going through it with the Pistons, all those guys in the 80s before he became Michael Jordan, Air Jordan, the Pistons used to whip his ass. Anytime he came to the hole, elbows, feeling him, love taps were in his head, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. I'm touching you. So I showed my guys Jordan getting his ass whipped. I loved it. I love it. I love it. It will be a bit tougher for the Raiders to impose their will on Mahomes the way the Pistons did against Jordan. They have to get pressure on Mahomes first of all, and an overtly physical approach could easily lead to a slew of roughing the passer fouls that would not benefit the Raiders at all. Really? Because I'm not too sure putting a couple of licks on him wouldn't hurt. More likely, Pierce wants to see his team play rough and physical and keep Mahomes under pressure as much as they possibly can. I think that's exactly it. You want to stay in his face all game long. You want to touch him all game long. In other words, you're in the backfield. You're collapsing the pocket, especially right up the middle, right up the gut, right? That's how they used to beat Tom Brady. That's how the Giants did it. Close the pocket in. Next thing you know, you look up, the Giants won 2 Super Bowls against Tom Brady. They knew how to play him on defense, and I'm going to tell you, what they did on Christmas Day against Patrick Mahomes, was fantastic. It really was. In fact, Andy Reid credits that loss to waking them up and leading them to a Super Bowl win. It's kind of odd how that's happened, but that's what he's come out and said. I love Antonio Pierce. I really do. I do. My big concern is the division that Antonio Pierce is having to play in. You got Sean Payton, Super Bowl. You got Jim Harbaugh, well, national championship, been to a Super Bowl, and I fully expect him to win one now. And you got Andy Reid, the Chiefs, and Patrick Mahomes. It's going to be tough sledding. It's going to be tough sledding for the Raiders, no matter what. But if they can keep pressure on him, you got a shot there. You really do. So let's get to Maxx Crosby, because he has made some comments also from this podcast. I'm going to have to listen to it. When I get off this, I'm going to turn it on while I'm working. But he's come out and made some interesting comments about the fact that he misses playing in Oakland. Crosby played his rookie year in Oakland before the team moved to Las Vegas, and he said that's a memory he'll always cherish. Quote, "It's funny, I was just talking about this today, and someone was asking me, did you play for the Oakland Raiders at one point? And I was like, yeah. That year, I'll never forget it, for many reasons, good and bad. The fans in Oakland. I'm so happy to have got to experience that, and obviously, it was the last year in Oakland, and the fans, I can't even explain. I'm coming from eastern Michigan, where we had 12,000 in the crowd. They've got tarps over one side because there's nobody over there, and that's what it was. And then my first game, we're playing Denver on Monday night. Von Miller's on the other side. We're playing Denver. The crowd was, I can't even explain how ridiculous it was. Them Oakland Raiders fans, you want to talk about passionate. Quote, throwing shit on the field. People are falling out of the stands. It was a shit show. By the time the fourth quarter hits you, you get the wave of Kush going through the whole stadium. I'm looking around, and all the guys are like, welcome to Oakland. And I'm like, this is legendary. I love it. I've got so much love for Oakland. It goes on to talk about the fact they now play in Vegas and Allegiant. So, I mean, that tells you right there. They miss it. It's a different environment. I've said, as soon as I get a chance, I'm going to Vegas. And I'm going to Vegas to see a Raiders game at that stadium, at that Death Star, because it looks awesome. But, look, even watching a game in Oakland on television, there was just something about it. It just felt different, I can remember watching different Raiders games on Monday Night Football. And you're like, man, the black hole, guys are dressed up like Darth Vader. I'm like, this is the greatest place ever. This is the greatest environment ever. And now they're not playing there. And it's sad. I think it's kind of sad. And what's kind of sad is a guy like Maxx Crosby didn't get to play there longer. Because Lord knows his personality in Oakland is like, that's like peas and carrots shit. It really is. Guys, I cannot wait to see what the Raiders got going on next year. A full year, an off season. Do they get a quarterback? There's a little Kirk Cousins buzz floating around about the Raiders right now. There's some Jaden Daniels. I don't know how in the hell they get up there to get him. I really don't. Do they draft a different quarterback? J.J. McCarthy rumors. I mean, what do they decide to do there? It's going to be interesting. Justin Fields. Everybody keeps ruling out Justin Fields. And I'm like, did he really hate Luke Getsy that much? Because when I pull up the numbers, I'm like, he sure as hell ran the ball for a lot of yards and scored a lot of touchdowns on the ground with Luke Getsy. Antonio Pierce, man, he's perfect for the Raiders. He is perfect for the Raiders. The biggest issue the Raiders got is simple. If the Raiders were in the AFC South, we'd be talking a different game. but they're in the AFC West. And look, the Chargers could suck again, but under Jim Harbaugh, they're not going to. It would shock me if he's there for 7 years, they might only go 8-9 1 year, somewhere sprinkled in there. But I expect the Chargers to win 10 or plus games here on out. Broncos, going to be in that 10-win scenario. And the Chiefs, well, they're going to be in that 12 to 13 to 14 win game. That doesn't leave the Raiders a lot of opportunities. It really doesn't. And that's going to be the issue. Got plenty of weapons on offense. Play physical. If you can get games against Herbert, whatever. Let's say you can sweep the Broncos and split with the Chargers and split with the Chiefs. Okay, then you got to get in the rest of your schedule. All right, you got to get some wins in other places then. Maybe it's going to be the Raiders are going to be one of the most interesting teams next year, no doubt. By the way, the NFL will probably come after Antonio Pierce because of his comments. I love him. I mean, guys, I grew up in a time where the Steph Curry three-point bonanza, James Harden three-point bonanza, that wouldn't exist. In the 70s, 80s, and 90s of the NBA, after you hit about your 4-3 in a row, somebody's putting a forearm and a shoulder and you straight into the first row. You're not going to keep hitting those threes. That's not how the league works, and I miss that basketball. Tell me what you think. Peace. I'm out. Till next time.
Thanks for watching the show. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Be sure to tune in next time on Black and White Sports.